Daily, life is a gift, and the fact that you see each day is also a gift. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Neota Igbe.
Well, you decide how you want to use your gift, but I believe it'll always be for good. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
And you start well with Sunrise Daily and you'll maximize it, I guarantee you. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
You're all talking about your day. And today is May 9, 2023. If you have an appointment today, well, now you know it's May 9. And for those who have a Supreme Court appointment, well, that is it. Let's get into this conversation this morning. We have a guest with us for the papers today. Dr. Marcel Mamalu is publisher, editor-in-chief, Prime Business Africa. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with the Guardian newspaper today. And of course, it leads with politics, as has been the culture in a few days from now. Discontent as aspirants, minority caucus reject Akpabio Abbas. That story you'll find the details of on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Well, it is on the front page this morning, Dr. Mamalu, but there are those who wonder whether or not it's new.
Well, I must tell you that, before this time, we're having some discussion about what is happening at political terrain, where aberration, always has a way of becoming the rule and the norm. I was talking to a friend and I said, we shouldn't be at this stage now where we are, where things that should be the preserve of the National Assembly themselves, is becoming like a public issue. Who are supposed to appoint or elect leadership or leaders of the National Assembly? They are the lawmakers who are appointed, who are elected to be there. But we find a situation where the party, and since 1999 this has been happening, I think maybe from 2003, where the executive of government tries to control who emerges. We have three arms of government. We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. How independent would you say the judiciary is, the legislature is, if the executive of government has control, or the political party, as it were? Of course, the political party has the right to say, okay, we prefer this, but by and large, it has to be the job of those on the floor.
But at the end of the day, is what it is. I mean, this is Section 50 of the Constitution that makes that clear. And some of the senators, both on the party side and on the other side, have continued to say the same thing, that look, they may do all the announcement, selection, whatever it is, but at the end of the day, it's their own thing.
Even though, it rarely happened before, there was upset. There could be an upset. In fact, we pray there are upsets, because it's Australia is an affront on democracy for we to begin to decide for the House who should lead them. Of course, we can say our mind. We can decide to say, okay, this is person we want. We don't want this person. We want this. But then the House has the right to choose who leads them, and I think that is what should happen now. I think it's diversionary talking about who should be the Senate President, who should be the Speaker of the House, when it is the job of the House themselves to appoint those to lead them.
I guess we'll wait to see how the House themselves.
But I don't really like that.
I don't really like play it out. Yeah. Well, let's leave that, because a number of headlines will be on the other front pages of other papers this morning. So that's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
And flip to Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper pretty much leads with the same big story. 10th National Assembly leadership zoning formula unsettles APC aspirants battle ready. Let's take a look at the riders. Wase, Doguwa, Jaji reject Abbas as Speaker, ministerial offers. Bajabiamila faces impeachment over doctored rules. Southeast senators kick as APC unveils Akpabio for Senate President. I'm just wondering, still on the same issue, where that leaves the Southeast agitation, to occupy the number 3 position in the country, following their failure or their inability yet again, to fulfill that age-long agitation to take the office of the president.
Yes, I think it's beyond that now. The Southeast actually, they have the right. The Southeast has the right to produce the president. If you're actually talking about the balance right now, the president is from the Southwest. The president-elect, we wouldn't know what will happen at the tribunal. The case is at the tribunal now, but as it is now, the president-elect is from the Southwest, and then you have the Senate president from the way they are talking about it now, it's coming from the South. The North, of course, having the and all these, we are just assuming that the House will endorse what the party wants and all of this. So if it happens that way, then it leaves the Southeast, playing the third fiddle again, if you like, and not even second fiddle. But all this will mean something, will be very important, would be significant if they are actually tailored for good governance, for impact. Because most times we talk for politicians, we talk for them, they just talk about this because of what it adds to their pockets, what they want to achieve personally. If
the argument is for good governance, for competence, then some would take a second look at the choice, because the argument is to the extent that the candidate for the Senate presidency seat is being compensated for stepping down for the presidential candidate, at the time of the primaries.
Yes, these are political considerations. That's the point I'm making. For me, let the best hand emerge. Okay. But for balance, I think that the ruling party should have take a second look at the way they regard the Southeast.
Well, still on that. I mean, looking back over this Fourth Republic, out of the eight Senate presidents we've had, 5 have been from the Southeast. How significant is that in all of these permutations?
And actually, how many presidents that you have? Unfortunately,
I'm just asking. I mean, that's the question I'm asking.
We are talking about, I was discussing with someone yesterday, and we talked about balance. I said balance could just be in the immediate, or it could be cumulative, when you're talking about, the Senate is just about lawmaking. The most powerful position in the country today is the president of the country. So, if you're really talking about balance, trying to have the unity, we're talking about one united Nigeria. We should be talking about, and be frank, irrespective of the fact that I'm from the Southeast, and be frank here, that you should be looking to finding a way to give the Southeast a sense of belonging in national affairs.
But then again, there's also that...
and that will be by way of looking for the #1 position for them to occupy.
But then again, there's also that debate over electoral gains and the need to compensate the zones, that delivered on the votes during the elections.
That's wrong. That's wrong place. Personally, I don't subscribe to this fact that when you win elections, you compensate those who voted for you through political appointments and all of those. Once you're elected, you cease to be the leader of the party, you're the leader of the country. So you are looking at how to galvanize. The governor does not know who voted for you and who didn't vote for you. Real governance is about providing for common good. Even criminals, sometimes until they are convicted and given the justice they deserve, they have their right to an extent. So that one does not vote for you. The moment you win, you become president of everyone.
That sounds like Uhuru, and it's a long walk to Uhuru in the Nigerian palace. But there are a number of other stories. Tinubu may travel out as northern youth seek probe of Buhari's aides. Bandits abduct 40 worshippers in Kaduna. Those stories begging for attention. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Well, we're taking a look at New Telegraph now. They're focusing largely on the presidential election petition tribunal, and you see right there on the front page, presidential poll, tribunal asks Obi Tinubu to reconcile documentary evidences. Okay, so they must be presenting the same kind of evidence, or maybe the evidence that they present must tally. Maybe that's what they're asking. Page 4 is where you get to see details. As parties brought heaps of documents, adjourns to tomorrow for hearing. To hear Atiku's petition today, dismisses AA's petition against president-elect, warns parties against technicalities. tribunal sat under heavy security presence. So it would also happen that there will be plenty of focus on the election petitions tribunal. I don't know. I want you to give us your first impressions, even though we've been told that the tribunal already began sitting, and it was yesterday that the hearings, substantive hearings, started. What are your immediate impressions in terms of how this has proceeded?
Yeah, thank you, Maokbe. I think in fact, the question should be, why the delay? Why the delay? Why have we waited to this? I don't know the challenges. I don't know the restrictions and whatever, for the tribunal. But right now, what's agitating my mind is why we had to wait to just 21 days or 20 days to swearing in, of a new president before the tribunal could just, set the ball rolling. And now we are in a hurry. Of course, we have 180 days to get this sorted out, but I would have preferred a situation where the tribunal, started earlier than now. I mean, if you've been reading contents on the internet, you would have seen some, speculations and some suggestions about, what could have been done. There are some aspects of those petitions, that could have been dispensed with by now, and before looking into even the substantive matter, things that are easier, to look at, So I think the problem we have with justice dispensation in Nigeria is this issue of the turnaround time, the issue of delay. And sometimes I am tempted to believe that they are deliberate. The judiciary actually has to do a lot to discharge itself this time around. I think that Nigerians are expecting to see justice to be truly dispensed, truly served. Whichever way it goes, let Nigerians see that actually justice, is actually done. And I'm sure, looking at the composition of the panel of judges, you could see, some hope. Even the parties yesterday, I was reading their comments, and they were all optimistic that justice could be served. Haruna leading the panel, and then there are justices of the appeal court, justices of the appeal court from Asaba, from Ibadan, from Kanu, and the rest. The team is a strong one, but it will only be strong indeed by the time Nigerians see that justice is served. So I'm worried about the timing. What could that be achieved before May 29? And Nigerians are very expectant. Not just Nigerians, the world is looking at what could come out from this. I'm sure And judiciary by now, I'm sure the judges themselves, they know that all eyes are on Nigeria and on the judiciary to at least show some glimmer of hope. That's for now. That's what I think. My thoughts on this: that a lot needs to be done to restore confidence in the judiciary, and then and that confidence will be restored through the way and the manner justice is dispensed, and the timing, and of course, they've talked about removing all technicalities, trying to fix the substantive matter. To what extent that will be kept will remain to be seen. But all eyes are on the judiciary right now. Thank you.
All right, let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
And we take up with the Vanguard newspaper with this headline: Presidential election petitions hearing, avoid technicalities, delays, court warns parties, lawyers. That story continues on page 5. A plethora of other stories there. The one below that, 10th NASS APC zone Senate presidency to South-South, Northwest gets speaker's slot. But the one that I want us to talk about is beside that picture of a discharge certificate presentation to Transcorp Power Limited is this story. In the middle, religious politics will destroy Nigeria. Governor Sule warns. That story is on page 13. Let's look at that a bit. How much of an effect does religion have on our politics, and what can be done about it? What do you think?
Unfortunate, very unfortunate, very unfortunate that we've sunk this deep into religious politics, and that's the bane of Nigerian politics and even governance right now, the consciousness of religion. And I keep wondering, for right-thinking Nigerians, to what extent would I feel as a Nigerian, would I worry about who governs me? Whether he's a Christian, whether he's a Muslim, as long as he does the right thing and the economy is working, everything is working, justice is served, everyone has his right, nobody is victimized. When we have people who govern with conscience, the right conscience, we wouldn't bother about religion. We wouldn't bother, even ethnicity, we wouldn't bother much about ethnicity. But the problem we have today is because there have been so much bad governance, there have been so much ineptitude, so much, the essence of government is to work for the common good, to provide security, to provide welfare, to provide, to make sure public utilities are there. And first and foremost, there is security. So when you provide security and provide the rights, when I talk about security, it's not just physical security. You talk about security, economic security. When you have financial security, economic security, and personal security, national security, and there is fairness and justice, nobody will worry about what kind of religion you practice. That's a private thing. But unfortunately, it has become the major issue in our politicking today. Everyone is talking about, is he a Muslim, is he a Christian? I don't worry about who emerges as long as the person does the right thing. In fact, I would want a better, most people today who say they are Christians or Muslims are not really true Christians and Muslims. They just bear Christian, they bear Matthew, they bear John, and automatically they become Christian. Most times they don't even believe in the Bible. And then you see people who don't even believe in the Quran because they bear one Islamic name. You say they are Muslims. So who are the true Muslims? Who are the true Christians? The point I'm making here is that it's actually diversionary for us to begin to talk about it. But that's where we find ourselves. And because it's that sensitive, we would need to balance it. That's why the issue of Muslim ticket became an issue during this electionary period. Issue of where the candidates came from became very prominent. And I think we as a country also have to be sensitive about that because of what it has become. So in our political dispensation, in our distribution of political offices, we need to be conscious of that because it affects the level or affects the magnitude at which the citizens accept leaders or trust their leaders. So we need to be sensitive to that. Otherwise, it does not really matter to me. But it's a problem in Nigeria which we need to really deal with. Nigeria must be a secular state that the Constitution says it is. And getting there is a different ballgame. Yep.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Babulu. Thank you. And that's all we leave for the Vanguard.
This Nigerian newspaper right quick this morning. APC OK South's Akpabio for Senate President. That's the lead of the paper. Zones Deputy Senate President, Speaker to Northwest. Southeast gets Deputy Speaker. Senators-elect reject imposition. That one you find in inverted commas. Insist on electing presiding officers. Kalu Izunaso vow to run. All of that you'll find parked on page 4 of the paper this morning. Right under that page, the picture you see there, Tribunal suspends hearing till May 10. Obi others storm court as Atiku PDP seek live broadcast of proceedings. That one is on page 12. A lot has been said about those already. But look at that picture. From Sudan with joy, tears. 5th batch of 129 Nigerians stranded in Sudan on arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, yesterday. some have been said about that, but the challenge has always been, how do we ensure this doesn't happen again?
What doesn't happen again?
The delay in bringing
in intervention and trying to intervene. Of course, that has been, if you don't have a system that works, our problem is not actually that we have leaders who don't rise up to the occasion most times. I think we have more of a systemic problem. The institutions not being put right. We don't have the right institutions to do the right things at the right time. That's the reason we keep talking about having strong institutions as opposed to strong leaders. Because of our military mentality, from the military background that our leaders have had over time, we've been ruled by military over a period of time, and even have had military personnel transmuting to civilian leaders and all those. So, our mentality has been that of that. So it creates a kind of an issue for us to build strong institutions that could stand the test of time, that could respond, even without intervention, respond at the right time. You had issues.
That's not a question for the leaders. It's a question for the people in the systems, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
No. But leaders, you are as good as the system is as good as who puts it in play and who directs it.
Well, I guess we'll have to. There's going to have to be a lot of debate on it because the leadership is on various layers, both political and public office.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Okay. Again, as I said, maybe it would be time for your organization to organize a national symposium on that one, so everyone knows what it's supposed to do.
Sure.
That's instructive.
Unfortunately, we're out of time now. Well, we have to thank you very much this morning for being here with us. Dr. Marcel Mbamalu is publisher and editor-in-chief, Prime Business Africa. He was editor of the Guardian newspaper. Thank you so much.
Editor at the Guardian newspaper.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we're back right after now to take on the issues for the day. One of them coming up right after this break. Stay with us.
As members of the All Progressives Congress jostle for leadership positions in the 10th National Assembly, the party has announced a zoning template for the position of principal officers.
The zoning agreement reported to the end of this is as follows. Senate President, South-South, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Deputy Senate President, Northwest, Senator Barao Jibril Kano. House of Representatives, Speaker, House of Representatives, Northwest, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin Kaduna. For Deputy Speaker, Southeast, Honorable Ben Carlo Abia.
Just as members of the National Working Committee of the party were meeting, some groups staged a peaceful protest outside the National Secretariat, demanding the zoning of the office of the Speaker to the North Central.
We are all here to call the attention of the APC National Chairman and to congratulate the President-elect in the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and to tell him that we, the North Central, have contributed immensely to his success. And we want to still tell him that we are being marginalized as regards the sharing formulas of offices in the national thank you so much. In the National Assembly, the 10th Assembly have not taken the North Central into consideration.
We are here today to make our statement open to the public and to the coming 10th National Assembly and the leadership of the All Progressives Congress that the North Central region of Nigeria deserves the speakership of the coming House of Representatives.
As the federal lawmakers in the 10th National Assembly await their inauguration, the party is hoping to address the grievances that are trailing the zoning arrangements.
Welcome back, and we start the conversation on that note of zoning within the National Assembly by one of the parties with the largest population amongst the elected legislators, the All Progressives Congress, having zoned the Senate presidency to the south, naming a particular senator, and the Deputy Senate President to the northwest, Speaker, northwest, Deputy Speaker, northeast. Now, that is the arrangement of the All Progressives Congress. But apparently the opposition party members are not happy, and it looks like they're not going to go along with that. So in the studio we have a Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Anti-Corruption, spokesperson of the 10th House of Reps, PDP, and Minority Caucus. Thank you for joining us, Honorable Dachung.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's interesting. My colleague said that the opposition members are not happy. It would be very strange if they were happy, wouldn't it?
Well, we're never meant to be happy, whatever decision they've taken at the end of the day.
But how is it your business that the All Progressives APC decided to do that? How does it bother you?
Absolutely, it's none of our business, because the House, the National Assembly entirely, is a very sacred house, like a very sacred house. And the sacredness of the House is enshrined in the Constitution. Section 50, subsection 1A and B. 1A talks about the Senate presidency, and the B talks about Speaker and Deputy Speakership. And it says, there shall be a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker to be elected among members by ourselves. The Constitution said by themselves, not to be nominated by any party thinking that it's majority or thinking that it's no, but the Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the House that will emerge in any assembly will be elected by members, and members not that by someone but by themselves. So 360 members will decide who will be its Speaker and Deputy Speaker. That is the sacredness of the House. And from the opposition, which we are the greater majority, and unfortunately, I usually don't understand how some people do their political calculation. When you have a House that the minority parties is 183 against your own party, which is 177. You sit down in a room, take tea, and just allocate positions, and we'll just sit down. Oh, come on!
So you think that your 183 numbers will make any difference?
Absolutely.
Even though they have the majority within the chambers?
Majority. We have the majority. They don't have the majority.
No, as an individual party.
They have a majority yes. As an individual party.
Yes.
But we have the majority as the minority party. That's why we call ourselves a greater majority. And the greatness that we have from our own minority parties have made us to be an indivisible bloc. So coming together. Coming together.
So the other side of it is how. Together, when you say coming together, how united are you guys?
Very united. We have had our first, second extraordinary sessions in the House, and if you had followed us, you will see that we were all there. We had a vote in even taking decisions, And one of the major decisions is that because we knew that this is what the APC will do, its kangaroo arrangement. We said that, look, with our 183, we are going to contest for the speakership and deputy speakership of the House among ourselves.
It is interesting that you say you're already having these votes when the House has not yet been proclaimed. I mean, to the best of our knowledge, the 9th Assembly is still very much in existence. It hasn't been dissolved yet, and all of this talk is talking like as going on as if we're already in the 10th Assembly.
Yeah, well, elections have taken place already. INEC has already declared
elections have taken place, but we know that the 9th Assembly is still in existence and is yet to be proclaimed. But I mean, I very much understand what it is that you're talking about, and the fact that the politicking is already heavily underway. You've talked about your numbers, the numbers of the minorities, whom you now refer to as the greater majority. It'll be very interesting to see how who will now be majority leader and who will be minority leader. If that kind of permutation will come into play. But this is what we've now seen from the APC in terms of their zoning. Some people have said, oh, they shouldn't have left it till this late. They should have spoken up much earlier because politicking has been ongoing, and it is very possible that members would have made up their mind before the zoning arrangement comes into play. This is not just something that the APC is doing. We've seen parties, I mean, even the PDP, when it had majority power in the National Assembly, try to zone it in such a way that it felt it was distributing offices in a way that was accommodating of all of the political zones in the country. That didn't always go down well. And we've seen how, the party's choice will be upstaged on the day of voting. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, why is it that somehow parties always want to go with a certain candidate, and somehow members always have a different choice? Why do you think that they simply can't see eye to eye?
Yeah, because you see, politicians have not yet realized the sacredness of having 3 tiers of government. And in the National Assembly, it's an entity of its own. The executive cannot and will not determine what will happen in the National Assembly. The sacredness of the National Assembly has given the members, like I said earlier, the freedom, the opportunity to be able to look into what will happen. So nobody will be able to dictate. And that's why the politicking is ongoing. Whosoever the members of the 10th National Assembly, and just like it has happened in the previous assembly, will decide who will be its presiding officers. And it's time that, look, we need to understand what the Constitution says, what it has enshrined for members. You cannot sit down today and just go to the judiciary and telling the NJC that this will be, and this is the person that will be the chief judge. It's not possible. It is sacred. It goes according to its own rules. So the same thing with the National Assembly, in as much as a lot of politicking takes place, but the sacredness of that institution, it's very sacred to understand that this is a body that makes law. This is a body that oversight. This is a body, again, that reach out to the to over 2 million Nigerians. So these are issues that politicians have not yet understood.
So ostensibly, the reason why political parties tend to get involved, I mean, what they try to tell the public is that, oh, we're trying to zone this in such a way that all parties feel a part of government. All the geopolitical zones are represented. But in terms of what has happened here with the APC and its zoning, I am still trying to wrap my head around how all the zones have been represented here.
It's the worst that has ever happened in the history of Nigeria and politics in terms of National Assembly. I'm not supposed to even talk about the APC, but look at what they have done. They've taken the Deputy Senate President to Northwest. They again giving the speakership to Northwest, leaving the other zones like the North Central and other zones that are supposed to have been part of. What equity?
Those are some of the things that will now, I mean, we'll now be asking the APC what exactly has influenced this. But for you, apart from the fact that, okay, opposition is generally never happy, whatever happens with whatever the political party, the ruling political party does, I mean, their job is to oppose it. What exactly is influencing the decision of members within the House? And people can say, oh, it's because of competence, capacity, but oftentimes the people whom they are thinking of bringing on board, they have never tested them. So what exactly influences the choice of members, general members in the National Assembly who always want to go against whatever it is the ruling party says?
First of all, in our rules that whosoever will be our presiding officer, be it the Speaker or Deputy Speaker, must be an experienced member. That is a legislator that is well groomed, not just first, at least second, third term. So we know ourselves. Knowing ourselves, we know who can be a presiding officer to be able to handle the House. The executive don't understand who the member. Okay, for instance, let me give you an example with what the APC just did in producing, in zoning it to Northwest. Not that they just zone it to Northwest, they microzone to an individual. The microzone to an individual. I can tell you, me seated here, I will speak for the people, me seated here, I have never sat down to interact for 1 minute. Apart from just passing across the corridor, will even the person they nominated to be the Speaker. So what confidence will I have that the person that they are nominating for the Speaker will be and give me fair hearing or have the capacity to even preside over the House? So these are issues that, look, you need a seasoned legislator, someone that can and will be able to interact with the entire 360 members. And that is why we, the opposition, say, look, we are going to, we have already set out an 11-man committee. The 11-man committee is sitting from today. Between now and next week, Tuesday, they will bring out our own list of people that we have screened among ourselves that we know. We know them, we can identify them, we know their capacity, we know their antecedents, and so to be able to contest for this, so we won't even be able to wait for APC to dictate to us. By the way, what is if they are now zoning? Let me give you this. If APC is zoning the speakership according to where they got majority of votes, according to their own argument, the Northwest, then the greater majority, we the opposition, we are going to give Nigerians according to the votes of the greater majority. How did the greater majority, how did we get the 183 votes from different minority parties? PDP, PDP during the general elections, PDP got almost 7 million votes. Labour Party got almost 6 million votes, and other minority parties. Put our votes together. Our votes together will be 13 million votes. The APC votes is how many votes? 8 million votes. So we are going to determine, because of the majority of even the votes we have. So we should be able to be talking about the votes we have that we got from Nigerians, not the votes that one party got. So they are even the minority in terms of the votes from the general elections, in terms of even the number in that. So APC is even minority, not even majority in terms of all ramifications.
You talk about, your members, yourselves, but we also know that majority of you people are people who are coming in for the very first time.
Yeah.
So how do you intend to sway these people who are coming in for the very first time, regardless of the party that they belong to say, this is the way you should go. We know this person. We can trust this person. What are some of the things that you are telling? I understand induction started yesterday. What are some of the things that you are telling these new members to look out for in the people whom you are going to be presenting to them?
In everything, even in grooming your own child at home, you give him you try to groom him in understanding that this is the way. If you go this way, it will go wrong. And that's why you take your children to school. And most of the new members that we have been interacting with them, we have had sessions and several meetings with them according to state caucuses, within our own so they are being groomed on daily basis. They say, look, this is how this is done. There are experiences of others that did not follow what experienced and seasoned members told them, And today, they are nowhere to be found. So, experience, understanding that integrity, morality of the House, and not just morality of the House, morality of us being called honorable members. The name honorable member is not a title that you just get on the street. We went through season of elections that today we are being called honorable. So the honorability in us needs to give us the understanding that, look, we need to be able to bring out issues honorably, and that's why and what we are doing with the new members so far.
You know, some will say that the APC just did its zoning. It's not telling new members how to vote at the end of the day. But also, why is this leadership thing so important when you people should be discussing the areas that you're going to be tackling as soon as you're coming? But you're going to answer that just before you go. As we bring in our colleagues from Lagos, they have some questions for you, please. Okay.
Thank you, NT. I'm just wondering, coming off the strength of Malque's question to you, Honorable Bagos, the fragility of the independence of the House. I wonder if party members, members-elect rather, are concerned about this, just as much. If you're riding on the strength of your majority in the minority, that's a good thing. But this new members-elect, how are they going to survive the pressure from which is inevitable, which may inevitably come from the members of the ruling party? I'm sure that they'll be coming with all forms of offers to this new members-elect to sway them to vote for their candidates.
Well, thank you. I must commend you for I think you're the first person in channels to pronounce my name Bagos as if you're from Jos. So I need to check. Maybe you were schooled in Jos very well. You did not funkify the name like others. Well, by the way, the new members, they are the beautiful bride of the House. So whosoever is contesting for whatever position, usually try to sway them with whatever. But what we have told them is, say, look, the credibility of the House is that whosoever will discuss on certain issues with you should be able to tell you his agenda according to the tenets of the House, not agenda according to what he might give you now, or how he want to make you possible a committee chairman, or how he wants it. No. Being a committee chairman is more than being, it's not up to you being a honorable member. Being a committee chairman is a responsibility added to you from what your people have given you to come and represent them. So it's not just about being a committee chairman. It's about making sure that your people are well represented. It's about making sure that your people get the dividends of democracy according and within the laws of the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So, as they are being cajoled, they are being lobbied, we are grooming them on daily basis, and that's part of one of the issues we are discussing through the induction, that the essence of you being a honorable member is beyond whatsoever promise anybody will promise you because of this and that. But any promise that any candidate will do to any member should be how we'll be able to ensure that the leadership of the House is being protected, the leadership of the House is being preserved, the leadership of the House is carried, it will be able to carry members all along. And that will take me to your questions about everything we do as legislators or even in the executive. Whatsoever happens that is not good at the end of the day is leadership. So that is why the issue of leadership of the House is very critical to us, because we understand that whosoever will be a leader, a credible leader, someone with capacity, will be able to lead the House
just a quick follow-up,
shaping.
My apologies, Honorable, if you can hear me. Just a quick follow-up on that, quick follow-up to Bukola's question. You often tell us, legislators, politicians, that politics is a game of interests. Now, what if, as Bukola asked, superior interests that are possibly personal or communal, come from these other parties. You're not all from one political party. You are from different political parties, and each political party cannot match the numbers of the ruling party, so to speak. What if other superior interests come to play for these new legislators, as you say?
Well, the superior interests should not override their personal interests, and their first personal interest that they are representative of their various constituencies. They shouldn't forget that, and that we should be able to tell them that the major interest of every legislator is the interest of his people that voted him into power. So any interest that seems to be superior shouldn't be more superior than the interest of his constituency. So that should be the first point of call. No interest as a politician is more than the interest of your people. Those interests will come in, those pressures will come in, but then at the end of the day, the interests of your people supersede whatsoever interest that might come in. So those are the grooming sessions that we have been giving the newcomers. We have seen it played out, but I wouldn't say that 100% will be able to follow what we are being, but then the majority out of the minority that we already have of the opposition, we should be able to make a statement that, look, the interests of our people come into play to be able to give them the dividends of democracy from leadership that we want to bring into the 10th Assembly, and at the same time to be able to see that whatsoever interests they have should be that will be whatsoever laws that we will make through in the 10th Assembly.
Well, closely related to that, Honorable, is, the premium that the National Assembly places on its ranking rules and its independence. It needs to wield its own independence to elect its key officers. But then again, we see every election cycle how groups come up with, agitations for the ruling party, to consider zoning, the key offices to a particular region of the country, whether it's in the interest of inclusion, whether it's in the interest of electoral gains, or to follow historical precedent. I'm wondering, what's the place of your standing rules anyway, if this group's place legitimacy on what the party thinks above your standing rules?
Yeah, well, like I said, our standing rules in terms of ranking, our standing rules clearly stated it that, look, whosoever will be the presiding officer must be an experienced legislator, and being experienced have to do with ranking, and being experienced have to do with your capacity, being experienced have to do with your number of years of returning into the House for you to be able to be a presiding officer. So, and understanding the issue of zoning, well, the issue of zoning, it's not part of our own rules in any way, but because of national unity on whatsoever issue we want to bring, and stability, that members or whatever party want to look at in bringing stability. But unfortunately, with what the APC have done, has not shown any national unity, have not shown that they want to stabilize the country, have not shown that they are carrying Nigerians along, but rather they are looking at their own personal political patronage according to votes. Like I say, even if it is their personal political patronage according to votes, they don't even have the votes as far as we are concerned. Okay. So ranking is very key, and it's not just about, and in Nigerian legislation, the House, be it the House of Representatives of the Senate, is a worldwide practice. Okay. If you look at and watch the sitting of even the U.S. Congress, you see them even addressing their colleagues as ranking so-so-so and so-so-so. Well, we don't do that. We just address you as the right honorable and so on.
Just a quick one, because we are running out of time. I just want to ask this question of, how significant is this whole zoning arrangement to the governance issues and the legislative functions? I ask that because, as you said, most of the issues that you have raised are more tilted in the favor of political arrangements. Yesterday we had a senator, former senator, Itayanang, who told us, look, at the end of the day, it's interests personal interests first, community interests next. That's what politicians do. That's at least from his own experience, having been chairman of both House Committee and the Senate Committee on Ethics and Business. So with that in mind, how significant really is this issue of zoning on the welfare of the people that are supposed to be governed and represented through this whole political arrangements in the National Assembly? How significant is zoning to governance?
Well, unfortunately, the Nigerian system, because of interests, like you brought out together, and because of lack of fairness and true federal character in ensuring that Nigerians get what they need to get at all equal levels, the zoning issue came in, especially during the Abacha regime. But for the legislature, for the workings of the National Assembly, we don't know anything in our rule books like zoning. Zoning just came in because of, well, the interest to be able to carry everybody along. And that came in as a result of that some leaders have not been fair. Just like what the APC have done, that they are not fair to even other zones. You just lump everything. And by the way, if you want to even talk about the zoning, the Northwest have produced Speaker. Tambawal, Right Honorable Tambawal was a Speaker from the Northwest. Masari was a Speaker from the Northwest. The first Speaker in 1999, Buhari, was a Speaker from the Northwest. And so even if you want to talk of zoning, that is not fair even to the other zones of the country. Where did you keep North Central? Where did you even keep the Northeast? Where did you keep the South and Southeast in terms of the zoning? So even in terms of the zoning, they are not fair. And those are the issues that, because leaders are not fair to Nigerians, that agitation comes into play. Now that what they have been able to do, the other zones will start agitating that, look, you are not fair to us. But in terms of legislation, in terms of business of the House, we don't look at issues according to, when it comes to our presiding officers, according to zoning. We don't look at that. All we look at is capacity. All we look at is your own ability to be able to lead us according to our rules, your own ability to be able to ensure that the Constitution is being enshrined and the Constitution is being kept, and at the end of the day, that Nigerians see the dividends of democracy. So I must make this very clear, that the business of the National Assembly has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with zoning. But the interest of politicians look into zoning for fear and whatsoever they want to do. So those are issues that we need to understand very clearly, that the business of the National Assembly has nothing to do with zoning.
Well, which leads me to the natural question coming next, Honorable Bagos, and that is, I mean, you clearly just mentioned one of those issues that you think the House of Representatives should consider moving forward. What other issues would you say that the House of Representatives needs to do differently in this 10th National Assembly? I don't know if you can speak for the entire National Assembly, but from your experience, I mean, having been in opposition and been on this side as well for a while, what are the things that you would say the National Assembly, perhaps more specifically, the House of Representatives, has to do differently in order for the true dividends of democracy to get home to Nigerians?
Yeah, the 10th National Assembly will be very different in many areas. Number one, you have the opposition parties even more than the ruling party. So which means there will be more checkmate in whatsoever business of the day that the ruling party want to come into play. Secondly, there will be more representation according to the voice of the people that have voted the different minority parties that today we have the majority. So the different thing that you will see that will come into the 10th National Assembly is that we'll have more voice of Nigerians in the 10th House of Representatives because of the more parties that are now in the opposition. So the different thing is that That is the different thing again that you will see in the 10th House of Representatives is that we will vote our own speaker among ourselves, by ourselves, and so shall it be. Section 50, subsection 1B, we will enshrine it, we will ensure that it's protected, it is sacred to us, it is sacred to Nigerians, and the laws of the Federation must be protected.
You know, Honorable Bagos, the question someone would ask is, would you be this opposed to the decision of the APC if they had zoned the speakership to the North Central?
No, not at all. I'm not speaking for North Central. I'm not speaking for North Central. I'm speaking for the opposition. I'm speaking for the minorities. I'm speaking for people that have sat down and discussed the issues. If today the opposition collectively will have taken a decision, we will go and we will toil towards that decision. But if it comes to personal interest for me to talk about personal interest, everybody will talk about his own. But again, if I am from the Northwest, I will even speak against lumping a lot of things just to the Northwest in the fairness of Nigerians, in the fairness of understanding that whatsoever we need to do, we need to spread the dividends of democracy. That is as a politician. But the sacredness of the House, in the fairness of giving whosoever is credible among ourselves. Whosoever is credible among ourselves. So that is the area we are not now looking at. But whatsoever we will look at it at the end of the day, the members will speak.
You know, it's interesting because you say that you're going to be producing the leadership from amongst the greater majority. That's what you said.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes when that wants to happen, they usually have somebody within the ruling party whom they support. But it does appear that somebody from amongst you is going to be standing. Is that what I understand?
That's the essence. Like I said, we have put in an 11-man screening committee, and we have opened it to all the members. That look, whosoever is interested should come forward, unless we don't have anyone that is interested to run before the opposition will go back again. Look at our resolutions and say, okay, look, what can we now look within the other party? But then, we as it is now, we are contesting for the speakership. But like I said, unless we don't have nomination, people that are interested, all the people that have come out now contesting, came out that, look, we want to contest, not that someone told them to go and contest. Well, if there is,
so we don't know. It doesn't matter if they are from the APC. No.
Our first point of call of screening is among ourselves. Yes, our resolution is that we are going to contest we're going to screen within the opposition for the speaker and deputy speakership. So even if at the end of the day we don't have someone that came out for the speaker, we only have someone that came out for the deputy speakership, we will still go for it. But the two presiding positions of the House, the opposition, the greater majority is going for it.
Okay, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dachung Bagos, who's Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Anti-Corruption, and he's speaking for the 10th House of Representatives opposition groups. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. So I think we'll be back in a moment. Just stay with us. And the conversation continues around that matter of leadership of the National Assembly following the decision of the APC to zone to certain regions of the country and, as our last guest said, micro-zone to certain individuals. We have in the studio one of the individuals from the APC who wants to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Please join us. Welcome Honorable Yusuf Gagdi, Chairman, House Committee on Navy and Speakership Aspirant in the APC. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
So, Our last guest referred to Section 51B, a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives who shall be elected by members of that House from amongst themselves. He quoted that profusely a couple of times in the course of his submissions here. You have already declared your intentions to run for the speakership of the House of Representatives, and but your party has decided to zone it to sub-region, the country that you're not from. What's your reaction to that?
Well, that section speaks it all, that we are supposed to elect Speaker and Deputy Speaker among ourselves. Whatsoever the party is doing, they know why they are doing what they are doing, but they don't have the prerogative of being in the hallowed chamber to choose who presides over the affairs of the House of Representatives. So I don't think it's something that I need to be bothered or to be worried about. More so that I was a victim of that. I contested for deputy speakership in the Plateau State House of Assembly. The government had its own candidates, but haven't entered for the election. The members elected me as the deputy speaker. So I think and such things have been happening in the National Assembly. I don't think anybody needs to be worried that parties have zoned positions. I don't even see that as a zoning. I see that as parties appointing people to preside over the affairs of the National Assembly. And National Assembly, for any reason, should not be treated like a department of government, like the Federal Executive Council, where you appoint whosoever you want to appoint to be a member.
But then the arguments will be also that the party's position and the party is supreme in all of this. So when you say, yes, the party might have done what it's done, but you're still going in for this, are you not going against the decision of the party?
When a decision is fair, you respect that decision. But when the decision seems to undermine the supremacy of the people of this country, you are elected in the first instance. If you get carried away by such decision, it means you cannot even represent your people. The purpose of being a representative is to be able to say, express your dissatisfaction on issues that seems to be unjust, on issues that seems to undermine the principle of equity, fairness, and justice. But again, National Assembly is not for APC, it's not for PDP, it's not for NNPP, it's not for Labour, it's for the people of this country. The crafters, I say it all over, of the Nigerian Constitution have wisdom in making sure that few people are selected to represent the views of Nigerians. We are not selected in the National Assembly to represent the view of a political party. And I think my party, the APC, would have been sensitive in the composition of the 10th National Assembly, where you don't have comfortable majority. Even in the situation where you have comfortable majority, when it comes to choosing leadership of the National Assembly, people are bipartisan. They leave the interest issue of political party outside, because the person presiding is not presiding for one political party. He's presiding for the entire people of this country. So I think we would have been sensitive to that. The worst thing is the way and manner within which the so-called zoning came out, where you seems to take two presiding officers and give one of the geopolitical zones against as geopolitical zones that have done well to the political party and without any recognition in terms of who get what. So it's actually my responsibility as a parliament, no matter the supremacy of the party. I think the supremacy of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is more supreme than that of the party. But as a parliament, I'm expected to regulate the conduct of Mr. President. So if at this level, I cannot see something wrong in what my party have done, because it is my party. So to hell with the feelings of the people of Nigeria. It doesn't speak well of me as a parliament. So if you see people...
I want to know, oftentimes there are a number of factors that affect the choice of a political party in terms of those that it narrows down to, or maybe, in terms of how it distributes its the offices, if it does have the power to distribute offices. Why do you think that your party has chosen to zone the speakership to the Northwest and also the Deputy Senate presidency to the Northwest?
If I should answer you straight, the only reason is that North Central is being belated by the party. North Central, if you look at the 2023 general election, I say this without apology to anybody. My party is being insensitive about the feeling of the people of North Central. And I believe the people are going to take their destinies in their own hands. You cannot take two presiding officers and domicile it in one geopolitical zone within the northern Nigeria. Look at the 2023 general election, where it came with a lot of issue of religiosity and ethnicity. North Central is one of the 3 geopolitical zones in northern Nigeria, and it has the predominant number of Christians. With my party Muslim ticket, North Central fought that we displayed American democracy by not allowing religion and ethnicity to play in the election in North Central. In the governorship election, North Central delivered about 5 states. In the presidential election, North Central delivered 4 states against the Northwest that is carrying 2 presiding officers where they deliver only 2 states to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I remember even in Kaduna, where they are trying to point out one candidate, perhaps because of him the zoning went to the Northwest for speakership. Asiwaju won in only 1 local government.
Do you think that it's because it might be too tough? I mean, for instance, the deputy speaker, we know, is also from the North Central, Honorable Idris Wase.
Yes.
And he's also gunning for the #1 position. He wants to be speaker as well. You're also from the North Central. How do you think that would have played out between yourself and himself?
We are 360. Take the issue of zoning away. Constitutionally, we have the prerogative to contest for the speakership. I am representing a constituency. Ahmed Idris Wase is also representing a constituency. That doesn't mean because he's deputy speaker, I should not pursue my destiny, or what is good for the people of my constituency, or what I think I have in my own opinion, the credentials to represent the 10th House of Representatives. It doesn't matter in a family where you are from the same father, the same mother. You contest a stool of the tradition of that family. And if another person wins, all things being equal, life goes on. Ahmed Idris Wase have the right to contest for speakership. No. I think constitutionally I equally have the right. That doesn't mean that I should be undermined or he should be undermined in any way.
Well, you're a little more benign towards, his own ambition to be speaker, but you seem very upset in terms of how your party has zoned its offices. Is that correct?
I'm not upset. Yeah, because I'm not intimidated by that position. You think it's meant to intimidate you? It meant to intimidate the entire members. And you will see it from the unfolding events. You can, my sister, you have, assuming the speakership and the deputy Senate president position is zoned to the north. You cannot domicile both the 2 presiding officers to whatsoever you want to give North Central. It is going to be a position that the president determines the view of those people you are. Assuming you appoint secretary to the state, to the government of the federation from the North Central, you fire him the time you want. And you will be part of the decision when it comes to national decision. Is this a decision that has been taken by the NWC of your party, or has been taken by a few individuals within your party? From the news going around before this decision, you know definitely NWC of APC are acting the script of some few individuals. Do you know who they are? I don't know. But I have had news in social media prior to this moment that some people, particularly around the president-elect, prefer some certain personalities. And so, if the zoning come to confirm such position, it therefore means that the NWC are acting the script of some few individuals. Perhaps they are powerless because of the nature of their offices, that if they don't act such script, they could be a victim of some political pressure and what have you. So I say it to all Nigerians without any apology to anybody that if NWC sign that position of zoning and issue it out, they are acting the script of some few individuals.
All right, let's take this to Lagos. Our colleagues, they have questions for you. Ayo, Kola.
Well, thank you, Nyota. Honorable Gagdi, I've been following, your narrative so far. If you say that the party should not lord it over the National Assembly, the National Assembly is independent, and then you say in another breath, that the North Central delivered at least 4 states as against the Northwest that delivered only 2 states, aren't you also playing the ethnic political interest card, rather than maintaining the need for the independence of the National Assembly to be preserved all the way in each elections of key offices of the National Assembly for each cycle?
I'm just following the antecedent of presidential elections. When we were to elect president in 2022 or 2023, particularly during the party primaries, we zone. Why? The purpose of zoning is not to undermine the independence of the National Assembly. You don't zone based on individuals. You don't zone because you want certain individual to preside over the affairs of the National Assembly. Zoning is to give sense of belonging, but when you zone and tie it to individual, that's where the problem is. I can remember vividly where our party announced Ahmed Lawal as a sole candidate for the presidential election, for the 2023 general election. Northern governors came out to say no. In the spirit of justice, fairness, the North has produced president for 8 years. Therefore, it should be moved to the southern part of the country. Even when we know that the majority, the vote in the North is more than that vote in the South. The figures are there. But in the spirit of justice, equity, and fairness, the Northern governors came out. I respect them. They came out to say no. Let us be our brother's keepers. Let there be sense of belonging. And it moved to the South. When it moved to the South, when the presidency was zoned to the South, nobody did it because of anybody. Asiwaju was contesting, the vice president was contesting, a lot of people from Rotimi Amechi was contesting. The party, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, provide leadership and ensure democracy come to play by allowing all contestants from that region that the position is zoned to contest. But when you begin to think about an individual and zone because of that individual, and when the zoning is not fair, like that of the presidential zoning, what we are saying is that parties should zone fairly, not 2 presiding officers of the National Assembly being zoned in one geopolitical zone. Zone it fairly. Even if it is based on reward, I think that have undermined the reward system. North Central have done better. There are a lot of people contesting in North Central. Zone it to the zone. Zone it to North Central.
Pardon me if I may come in there. If that's the case, then the APC zoning has not always been fair. In the 9th Assembly, for instance, the vice president came from the Southwest zone, but then again the party zoned the speakership office yet again to the Southwest. So the zoning is not always fair. So shouldn't the party be allowed?
You don't have idea. You need to ask me about what happened in 2019. I was one of the key players that produced Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila. It wasn't zoning. It was a reward to Femi Gbajabiamila being a minority leader, being a majority leader, being someone when Mr. President had issues with the then presiding officers, particularly Right Honorable Dogara and the Senate President, from the Senate President. He played a key role in defending the integrity of the party as the majority leader in the National Assembly. So the president deemed it fit. They call us, even in doing that, we didn't see it in newspaper like we are seeing what we are seeing today. Mr. President have called us for a dinner in the villa to tell us that based on some circumstances, the presiding officer, particularly the speakership position, ought to have naturally not come from that zone. But I want to reward this gentleman that have done well to the party in this, because National Assembly are respected as stakeholders in this country by the present president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who invited us in a dinner and allow us to ventilate even after giving to endorsing Femi Gbajabiamila. It was an endorsement of individual in 2019 for the reward of what that person have done in the course of his representation in the National Assembly. That position was not, that circumstance was quite different from what is happening today. So you don't call it zoning. I think if you had asked me, I would have told you why that thing was done. And even when it was to be done, Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari did not just call the party and say, right, then the members see it in pages of newspaper and social media platform that Femi Bajabiamila is being endorsed. The members were carried alone. Well, they were invited. They were told reason why such thing ought to have been done.
All of that is taken, Honorable Gagdi, but you know, my question is akin to that of Bukola here with me, in that, I mean, going back in time, we noticed that anytime there is zoning, there is always opposition to it. You talked about the Senate president, how that he was zoned by the party, but then we still had people within the same party who contested against him. What does that say really? How do you ensure, how do you want to ascertain, Honorable, that the 2015 dose is not going to be served again in 2023? Because we noticed that even though there was some arrangement that the party was already making, it didn't quite go that way because members already decided what they wanted to do, and they went ahead of your political party to do just that. So I'm wondering, how do you want to ensure that the 2015 dose is not served again this time around, particularly with this cacophony of voices from within your party, which is supposedly the ruling party?
We are clearly, most of us, the aspirants, are clearly rejecting in total the position of that, I call it so-called zoning. And that is one of the steps to ensure the 2015 scenario doesn't repeat itself. But if the party insists to go by that zoning arrangement that is not just, it's not fair, it's not equitable among the geopolitical zone, be rest assured that the issue of 2015 is going to repeat itself. I can confirm that to you for free.
If you were to be elected as Speaker by your colleagues, whatever happens with the zoning arrangement of the party, or even whatever happens on the floor of the House, if you emerge as Speaker, what do you hope to do differently to stand you out as a Speaker that Nigerians can look to as one who is leading an independent parliament?
I have said it elsewhere during the unveiling of my manifesto some few days ago, that I'm going to be a speaker for Nigerian people. I'm not going to be a regional speaker or a political party speaker. And from my expression here, you should know that I'm quite conscious, I'm quite aware of the fact, the sensitivity of that position. You are not there by a political party. Yes, you use a political party platform to win election, but the oath you are going to take is not to defend the interests of your political party. It's to defend the interests of...
What I want to know, what are some of the things that you immediately intend to do?
I intend to carry a lot of
to stand you out.
Two reforms. Two reforms with subsection. One, to reform the House of Representatives, and to consider public policy priorities. Reforming the House of Representatives, one, you know, House of Representatives need to have a parliamentary agenda, and it doesn't have a standing committee. I intend to put in place a standing committee that will prioritize the interests of the 10th House of Representatives, one. Secondly, I intend to change the way and manner within oversight function is being conducted, where agencies and departments of government should be scrutinized thoroughly to account for taxpayers' money that is being allocated to them in such a way that reports of standing committees, one, I will make sure that oversight function is conducted periodically, where the House need to shut down, not when some people are in plenary, some people are in Lagos, Port Harcourt, what for oversight function. You shut it down, you ask oversight standing committee to go and oversight agencies and department of government, return their report, present it on the floor of the House, and equally generate a website that I will make sure that I publicize those reports for the public consumption. We are representing the public. Therefore, there is no gainsay that you go and do oversight function of ministries, how money is allocated to ministries, level of implementation of those expenditure is done, and you hide it to the general public.
Will you use made in Nigerian cars? I'm just a little curious.
What?
Will you use made in Nigerian cars?
made in a car or without car I have. Even if it is Tokumbo car, I will use it. Whatever car that is given to me by, after all.
You did not answer the question. Would you use made in Nigeria?
I will use a car that is provided to me by the management of the National Assembly, because I don't, as a speaker, I don't have the prerogative of determining.
Would you push for made in Nigeria cars to be used?
What is most important? It's not the car I will use. What is primarily important to me as a speaker is policies that will better the lots of the people of Nigeria.
Right. Thank you very much. Honorable Yusuf Gagdi is the Chairman House Committee on Navy, and he's running for the speakership position in the House of Representatives and is of the APC. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you very much.
Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment to look at something else. Don't go away.
Of the pre-hearing of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, men of the Nigerian police cordon off roads leading to the court as a way of ensuring peaceful proceedings. Inside the court premises, lawyers and journalists who arrived at the court as early as 6:30 a.m. wait for the doors to be opened. Finally, the doors open and they all go in. The courtroom is filled to its capacity with mostly lawyers. The presidential candidates of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and the governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, are part of the dignitaries present to witness the day's proceedings. The mood in this courtroom is one of anticipation. Some of these senior advocates have partnered each other on some cases before now, but today they are on opposing sides. The pre-hearing session begins, and the presiding justice, Justice Haruna Samani, who leads a 5-man panel of justices, sought the cooperation of all lawyers in the 5 petitions to enable the court to decide the cases on time. The lawyers leading the legal team agreed to work with the court to ensure prompt determination of the petition and to achieve justice. 3 appeals from the Labour Party, Allied People's Party, and Action Alliance were heard. One of the petitioners, Action Alliance, withdrew its petition before the court, following a petition by its lawyer, Obamadu Abuchi. The court subsequently dismissed it, following no objections from the respondents. The court also barred the governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, from standing before it as a representative of the president-elect, Bola Tinubu, since he is not a corporation that will need a representative. Mr. Lalong subsequently decided to represent the All Progressive Congress.
We will do all that we ought to do, leaving no stone unturned. And let me assure you that it will be obvious to Nigerians that we did our utmost best, and that election is the worst we have ever had in this country, the worst in Africa, perhaps the worst in the whole of the third world, and that is true.
Counsel to the People's Democratic Party believes the proceedings should be televised to give it more credence.
Public hearing means members of the public should be allowed, and the court got it right today when they saw that the whole courtroom was filled with only lawyers. They said no, but lawyers should try to create some space so that members of the public will also sit down and witness or watch what is going on. So this case is not just of national dimension alone, it is also of international dimension. The whole world is watching. They want to see how our justice system works.
The counsel to the president-elect, however, declined comments. Presidential election court will continue its pre-hearing session on Tuesday with a petition from the PDP and the APM. It also adjourned to Wednesday for continuation of hearing of the suit of the Labour Party and the APP. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And we will stay on that matter with the news coming from the Presidential Elections Tribunal. What are we to expect? I mean, they started sitting yesterday. We had a guest here who said actually the activities of the tribunal started way before yesterday, but they started sitting yesterday, and so far so good? What should all the parties involved, how should they conduct themselves? What should the electorate be expecting? Because all of this is about the electorate and the votes they cast. How would it go? Would it be televised, as some of the representatives there are asking that it be televised, since it's supposed to be for the good of the public? But looking at all of this, we have here in our studio Mr. Ezenwa, who's the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform. Thank you for coming in here.
Thank you. Good morning.
And we're expecting to join us virtually Mr. Monday Ubani, chairman, section of Public Interest and Development. He'll be joining us virtually, but I'm not sure he's there yet virtually. So when he comes in, oh, there he is, Mr. Ubani. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's all right. Let's start off with you here, Mr. Mwangu. We had a guest here yesterday who talked about the sitting of the tribunal and what they should be doing. He feels that the tribunal could actually dispense of this whole matters in less than the 180 days as stipulated by law. But you being a part of those seeking electoral reforms, I'm sure you're also happy with the Electoral Act. You're one of those who was really excited with the Electoral Act as it was passed, the 2022 Electoral Act. And we've seen it come to play in this election. Howbeit, some people argue that it wasn't fully implemented as it should. But now that the tribunal started, what have been your observations from yesterday?
Well, the Electoral Act is not that I was excited. We were part and parcel of pushing for its passage, and in fact, we did make contributions to it. So sometimes we're very uncharitable to ourselves. We don't like her taking that bragging rights, but I think I should do that at this point, especially. When you look at it around the background of the fact that the conclusion of the electoral process ends at judicial oversight. If judicial oversight has not happened, then the electoral cycle, we do always say that is a process. So the culmination of that process is at the judicial interventions that we're seeing. And so it's about the legal framework, is about the rules. And Marco, if you remember, I often say here that election is a law-guided process, and that if it fails, is a failure of law enforcement. So because every section of it is backed by a certain law. So the judiciary within the next few days will be interrogating whether, in their own words, whether there has been substantial compliance with these legal regulations and all of that. So for me is nothing, in the sense that we have gone through this process before. My challenge will always be when we start talking about when we have swollen expectations. I like to call it swollen expectations. Swollen because sometimes we can manipulate the people to have an expectation that is painted in our own canvas, in the sense that what is justice is what we want to portray as justice, is the justice of our own view. What we think is justice must be justice, and once that thing that is not our own justice is reflected, that it is not justice. So that is the minefield that I'm seeing that we are working right now. We have a situation in which, if you listen to most of the public commentary, is about the judiciary must do what is right, and then I'm asking myself, what is right in whose? Is it your own right, or what is right according to the law that is before us?
Well, is there clarity? Is there any ambiguity in the law that will cause people to be looking at it from this side? This side is the right side of the law for me. The other side is the right side.
No, that's what I'm saying. The issue of justice, equity, all those things are things that you are the one who determines what is justice for you, and that is why you went to court. But there are institutions, there are people who have been saddled, who have been trained, saddled with responsibility of looking at that law. I've not been trained to do that. I've not been saddled with that responsibility. My view can as well be a tea drinking view. You know, me and Okwe or you discussing and I'm saying this is what is justice. But at the end of the day, those who are trained will look at it from the lens of their expertise, the lens of national cohesion and unity, and then make a judgment. And what I always have called for is the respect for those institutions. So that we don't invade the kind of things that we are putting on them in a way that when their outcomes come, I know there's been episodic challenges with how the judiciary has carried itself, but I also know there's been stellar performance, stellar judgments that have at least resonated with the majority of the citizens. But oftentimes, it may also not resonate with what everybody thinks. Yes.
Well, the Electoral Act 2022 was a job of work, and we saw the amount of work, the amount of lobbying, the amount of pressure that went into ensuring that members of the National Assembly passed this particular law. I mean, I'm looking at Nyota's copy. I'm about to grab it just so I can make my point. We know how much work went into it, and eventually how much lobbying. I didn't ask for your teacup. How much lobbying went into, asking the president to sign it, and when eventually he did, how it was celebrated. Part of, from what I recall, or what I recollect, is the fact that during the 2015 general elections, with the introduction of the card reader, the smart card reader, what we found was that the evidences that people would have tendered at the Election Petitions Tribunal was not tenable because it wasn't backed by law. In this dispensation, the BVAS, which has been introduced by the election umpire, as well as the IREV. Now, people have said, what about the IREV? I mean, do you think that there'll be areas that will be gray? Because part of what people are asking, or part of what people are saying, was that INEC didn't live up to its own words in terms of how it wanted the results of the elections to be transmitted. Considering what is in the Electoral Act and what also is in INEC's guidelines, do you think that the courts have enough before them in terms of the backing of the law to be able to take a decision one way or the other?
Well, I think that we can look at introduction of technology in parts, because that is how it played. So the BVAS, for instance, is to do a particular work within the election period. It's supposed to identify that the holder of a PVC is the correct holder of that PVC. That's the BVAS. It's also supposed to ensure eliminate voter identification theft. And by all the records that is available, reports of observers has shown that the BVAS performed creditably well, 98%. So that is technology also. That is so when you're dealing with the IREV is the conclusion, is the end point. In fact, the truth of the matter is that the election will have been concluded before IREV, because the party agents, the security, will have had copies of EC8A.
From the polling unit.
From the polling unit, mined from the polling units. And apart from that, there's a Form E60E, which is the people's result, in quote, that is also pasted in that unit. So it is at the conclusion of all of this that you now snap. You snap the Form EC8A already given to party agents. And so for somebody like me, it is a checker. You have your results. If the results, because it's INEC's, the law, the constitution, the Electoral Act says INEC can now deploy whatever technology that it deems fit to be able to do its work effectively. So for results management, it imputed some kind of integrity component, which is after all of these have finished, you can go up here and check whether what happened at the polling unit is still reflective as the chain of this collection continues from the polling unit to the ward, to the RA, to the state, and then to the presidential, if it is a presidential. So in dealing with technology, we have to put it in that part. So it didn't fulfill its promise for the upload of results. Does not mean that technology failed in 2023, and that distinction is always very important, because oftentimes when people say technology, they didn't know that there are different components to that, and that some part of it worked effectively well. Okay, and that is important to put out there. So for the judiciary, it's their call. Ours is to, say what we understand from the perspective of what we know already. Yeah. All right, let's see if we can bring in Dr. Obani here to look at that part of the law that you talked about. Dr. Obani, Mr. Wangu here has talked about the fact that every aspect of the electoral process is backed by law. And yesterday we heard the chairman of the tribunal advising the lawyers in the court and everybody there to avoid any technicalities or delays and ensure that there are no shenanigans, so to speak, to waste time. But then the question I want to ask you is, within the ambit of the law given to the tribunal to deliver its judgment or to end its sitting, as the case would be, in 180 days, are there any ambiguities in the laws backing the electoral process that could cause a delay in the dispensation of this cases?
Yeah, thank you for having me. The truth of the matter is that when 180 days was prescribed by the Constitution for the hearing of the election petition at the Court of First Instance, we were still using the old Electoral Act, where issue of technology wasn't much deployed in the electoral process. And so 180 days was used. That from the time of filing to the time of delivery of judgment is 180 days at the election tribunal. But now in 2022, you now have an electoral act that part of it has a lot of technology infused into it. The issue of beavers, making sure that those who actually participate in the electoral process are known. You cannot manufacture figures anymore. And then we have the issue of IREF, the result already loaded and everyone has seen it. And then you have this issue of having certified true copies of this election result from INEC. And then the new act is even reduce the number of witnesses you have to call, unlike in the previous act, where you have to involve all the political party agents from the polling unit in order to prove their case. Now, if you have the documents from INEC showing the result, it can be brought to the court, so to speak, and then admissibility of that document becomes a very veritable tool for you to prove your case. So the new act has even made it simpler, that we may not have to spend the 180 days, which is based upon the former act. But now the new act has reduced all those levels of processes that make it a bit cumbersome in proving your case as a petitioner. And so I think that the using 180 days was for a reason. Now that technology is being infused in our electoral system, we have to look at that particular constitutional provision once again in order to see what we can do to reduce the number of days within which to hear election petition. Now, if you are given 21 days within which to file, meaning there is a sense of urgency. So why are we now saying we have to take 180 days? And of course, in all other nations, people want to see a situation where the electoral process is concluded, the judicial process, which is part of the electoral process, being concluded before you swear in somebody who is alleged to have won the election. So I think there's going to be a tinkering with the law. 180 days, I don't see any problem with it. The new act has even made it simpler, for matters to be proved within a short time, rather than waiting for that 180 days within which to conclude the election petition.
All right, I think our colleagues in Lagos have questions for you.
Thank you, Nyota. Well, let me begin with you, Barrister Dr. Obani. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. Wango would also want to weigh in on the same question. There are a lot of emotions attached to this particular process, particularly the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. There are those who are already saying we're not likely to get any justice. It's just going to be the same old, same old. With the emotions involved, with the number of petitions from different political parties, and with the high expectations of a sizable chunk of Nigerians from different divides and different political leanings, and the emotions invested already, Dr. Ubani, what assurances can you give Nigerians? What do you think people should be looking out for that will make this, whatever the outcome is, just what Nigerians want, irrespective of their expectations? Well, Mr. Wagu, same question to you with the emotions involved and in this particular process and the expectations of a sizable number of people. Right? So Bani initially has said it's going to be application of laws, not application of emotions. But then, how easy will it be for us to dichotomize the two? Mr. Wagu, can you hear me?
Election is an event that is vehicled by emotions. People throw in different kinds of emotions into elections. But in terms of oversight, the responsibility of the people who oversight elections will be to look at the laws. We'll look at it from the lens of the law, from the lens of the regulations, from the lens of the Constitution. And it does not require emotions. What has happened and what we need to guide against, which is what I've continued to maintain, is that when you win election in your polling unit, does not mean that that election was won everywhere. And even when you win in a sizable way, it does not mean that the person has fulfilled all the conditions that the law stipulates to be able to be declared a winner. And so when you are declared a winner, it becomes the responsibility of the judiciary to say, yes, it is possible you scored this number of votes, it is possible, but did you fulfill for a presidential election, for instance? It is important. There is a reason why the Constitution, why the Electoral Act is very clear as to the spread that somebody who should be president should have. So even when you have won majority votes in a particular area, those who are oversighting this will look at the whole landscape. They will place it before them and then see whether you have fulfilled all of that. And the challenge is when we're training election observers and we tell them, look, you're observing in a particular polling unit. So when you are going to talk to the media, don't say, don't just make a call on what you saw in your polling unit, because that may not be representative of what has happened everywhere. And that is why we encourage political parties as well.
If you can hear me, Mr. Wagu, just one second. If you can hear me, my apologies. Just one second, Mr. Wagu, if you can hear me.
Present the party, get those results for
just a second, Mr. Wagu. My apologies, my sincere apologies for butting in. All of the things that you're saying are valid. I mean, it's been our history for the past 20 whatever years now. But this one in particular, this particular election, you would agree, you referenced it earlier when you began to talk to us this morning, that a lot of emotions have been invested, is being invested, and expectations are high to the extent, as you also referenced earlier, that a number of people are saying, why must we have the swearing in before the tribunals have stopped seating? So essentially saying, that at the end of the day, what we want is justice, yes, but we expect it to go in a particular direction. And if it does not go in that direction, they may not feel that justice has been served. What should we be telling them now so that whatever happens, it will be respect for the judiciary, particularly because this is how it ought to go based on the laws that govern the elections?
The first thing is for those who are engaged in public commentary to acquaint themselves with the relevant sections of the Electoral Act. And I'm always very excited when I come to channels and I see every person holding a copy of the Electoral Act. It gives me confidence that people are acquainted relatively, albeit to the level of the ordinary person, even though there could be also lawyers. And remember that as you have 1,000 lawyers, 1,000 opinions on every matter. So it is to set up public imagination in a way that there are people who have been given this responsibility, and we should have confidence in them that they will be able to deliver what is right. In 2011, for instance, if you remember, the current president had been to court 3 times. In all of those 3 times, he's always said he won the election, that he won it, and public imagination around his own area. The truth was that he did win in a particular section of the country, but he could not go around the country and say, I won everywhere. So the judiciary interrogated it from the point in which he was losing. He was always saying that, the judiciary, but once he won in 2015, the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. So we need to interpret those things correctly, that the fact that you think you have won does not necessarily mean you have won. And that was why I made the point about winning in a polling unit. You can win your polling unit convincingly. But this country is huge, 176,000 polling units, 176,000 of them polling units scattered across the length and breadth of this country. So it is possible for you to win in Ifezin, but you may not win in Ikolekiti. And you must win round. And because now there is an oversight, all of this will be put on the table. The judiciary will put it on the table, everything, and then look at it collectively. When they have looked at the votes cast, they will now again look at the spread. If somebody fulfills those conditions, it may not go down well with you, but that is what the law is. It's like the 180 days we are discussing. What is the hurry? Why you must conclude it before? There's an expectation. And that expectation is running against what your idea of justice is. Because you probably think the person who has been declared is not justice. And then you want it to be hastened. But we don't need to pander to that. We have to follow the process. It is the discretion of the judiciary to say, we can do this in 180 days, we can do it in lesser, depending on the avalanche of evidence that is available to them. But one thing that is very clear is that hallucinations disappear when evidence emerges, and that is the core of what we need to put out. Once evidence emerges, all your hallucinations, everything you are thinking will disappear. So let's focus on what we know to be the law, the current law, not what we are thinking should be the law. The law is there already. It will be interpreted, and we hope that those who have been given that responsibility will discharge it according to the oath that they have sworn to the Constitution and to God Almighty as well.
But Mr. Wagu, just to this one question, and then my colleagues over there can take over. There is that call by some sections of the judiciary, people in the courts as well, for a live broadcast of the presidential election petition ongoing process. What's your take on that? Is it permitted, or is it for or against the law?
Well, really, I can't make a call on whether it's legal or not, but I'll just tell you a story. As a member of the 2014 National Conference, we did advocate for live telecasts of our sittings and sessions. And what that, in retrospect, what that did was that a lot of people started playing to the gallery. And we are not talking to the issues. They were now talking to the cameras. And that took away the real issue. So when we went into executive sessions that were closed, people spoke their real mind and what they know to be the truth. I will give you an example. On derivation, 50% to the Niger Delta, 50% to the oil producing. When they come to the sessions, they do it. So why are you saying that when you know that? They say, if I go home, my people are seeing me. So my sense is that as important as that level of transparency is, but we are dealing with very technical issues that can endanger a judge who perhaps, stays on the course of the law and does not run on these emotions that we are talking about. Because when you do that, it will be a matter of, hey, nay, way. You are now deciding whether what the judge, and this person does no understanding of the whole gamut of the law. I think we need to be circumspect in falling for that. I think that we should have confidence that those who have the responsibility. We've had very serious cases in the judiciary that are not live televised, and I think we should.
The trial of Senator Ike Ekweremadu in the UK, where the trial wasn't televised at all, but eventually the verdict was televised. People could watch, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians have the copies of the judgment, the video judgment on their phones. For you, I don't know if you've seen that particular judgment. Do you think that that's something that we could adopt? That perhaps all of the hearings and all of the nitty-gritty can be behind the cameras, but the eventual verdict, do you think that is something that will be worth televising in a manner as clear? Because I listened to that judgment. It wasn't, you could hear what areas of law the judge had relied upon and how he reached his verdict. Do you think it's something that Nigeria perhaps can adopt?
No, it happens. It's just that it is not put out there. The plaintiffs and the defendants have copies of the judgments naturally. That is why sometimes when they finish, they say they will give the judgment, and then later they will do that. So it's there. So if the call is that for the verdict to be televised, I don't have an issue with that. But the treadmill of judicial intervention should not be exposed to popular interpretations, because that will mean that you are going to evoke those emotions, and then it can actually not lead to the outcome that we're looking to.
All right, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Ezinwa Nwangu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, and we had here in our studio, joining us virtually, Dr. Monday Oban, who's the Chairman, Section of Public and Interest Development. We do apologize for that audio issue with you and to our viewers, but thank you so much for coming on to the show this morning. Just before we leave you on Sunrise Daily, we have tweets and comments. Okay.
Indeed, I'm just looking at, yes. Well, I'm trying to see if any have been posted here, but can't seem to find any.
I have one here from Oshino Kingsley. Says, at Baba King 85, says, the moral thing is to ensure that election matters are determined by all courts before swearing in. This will prevent any illegal administration being sworn in and make sure that the process isn't being interfered with.
Okay, I see this one from Professor Enakena, who says the APC doesn't have the constitutional right to announce bogus arrangements that totally exclude the Southeast and even the North Central, despite having the chairmanship position, does not justify the exclusion of the Middle Belt. At this time, we're talking about the government of national inclusivity. Having narrowly survived the last presidential elections because of the insidious Muslim-Muslim ticket, they need to be careful, otherwise the Saraki and Dogara debacle will become a child's play.
Religion in our national politics. There it goes again. This one is from Law Alpha Cross, and he says, APC was in a hurry to reel out names of principal officers by now. They ought to have played along with aspirants by having consultations with all relevant stakeholders ahead of the inauguration of 29th May. The opposition has found a loophole to put spanners in the works. We'll see how that goes.
And indeed, that's how the show goes today. I want to thank you for letting us be a part of your morning as we started out. Remember, today is a gift. Life is a gift. Use it well. I'm Nel Taibi.
Thank you for watching. I'm Aokwe Yusuf.
Yeah, from this side, we say thank you for watching also. I am Bukola Koka.
Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makinde.